Night falls on the city, streetlights flicker as wind howls between decaying buildings left behind by time. Kael had just killed the engine when a sharp clang rang out from the alley behind his workshop. He frowned, grabbed the oil-stained wrench still lying on the passenger seat, and stepped out without hesitation. A grav bike lay smoking and mangled beside a trash bin. But what made Kael freeze wasn't the wrecked vehicle. It was the figure, crouched beside it. Or rather, the being. Under the dim yellow streetlight, her skin emitted a faint glow like bioluminescent paint, smooth, shimmering green, like living ice. Her body was curved in dangerous ways, strikingly feminine, but her left thigh was bleeding, thick, dark blood pooling like ink. "Back off," she said. A strange weapon in her hand snapped to life with a crackling surge of energy. Kael raised one hand, calm voice steady. "I'm just looking. You're bleeding." "I've bled worse," she snapped. "Yeah, well, you're leaking all over my alley." That gave her pause. For the first time, she actually looked at him. A man in a grease-stained mechanic's shirt, tool belt still slung across his hip. "You didn't see anything, right?" "Didn't see a thing," Kael replied, though his eyes had already flicked to the sparking grav core underneath her ride. "Grav core's unstable. You're lucky your leg's still attached." I shut it down. "Did you cool it?" he asked. Silence. Her lips tightened. "No." Kael reached into his bag without waiting for permission, pulled out a CO2 patch and slapped it straight onto the smoking component. The patch hissed violently, sending a white vapor cloud into the air. "There. You're welcome," he muttered. She stared at the patch like it was sorcery. 1 second later, her legs buckled. Kael moved just in time to catch her before she crumpled next to the dumpster. Her weapon slipped from her fingers and clattered away. "Don't touch me," she growled. "Little late for that," Kael said, gripping her shoulder just before she collapsed face first. Her breathing was ragged. Sweat clung to her alien skin, glistening like a film of mystery over muscle and bone. "I can help," he said softly. "No one can," she muttered, jaw tight. The garage door slammed shut behind them. The blackout curtains were pulled down tight, cutting off all traces of outside light. "I've got med tools and a bench. If you still want that bike working again, you'll need both." She stared at him for a long beat. "What do you want in return?" "The truth," he said, eyes unmoving. After a moment of tense silence, she gave a slight nod. Kael moved fast, sliding one arm under her shoulder. He was careful not to touch more than he had to, but when her arm curled over his back and her chest pressed briefly into his side, it was more than enough to make his pulse spike. "You're not from around here," she murmured near his ear. He raised a brow. "What gave it away?" "My detective aura?" Inside the mechanic's workshop, dim lights reflecting off cold steel, the air thick with blood, and the scent of engine oil. She sat on the steel workbench near the wall, her blue eyes glowing faintly, as if they reflected all the darkness in the room. Kael opened the medkit and pulled out a biopatch, along with a sterilization tool set. "Stay still, or you'll pass out from blood loss before you even get the chance to grab the throttle again." "I'm fine," she replied, though her voice had softened, tired, slightly strained. Kael shook his head slowly. The tear in her flesh ran nearly 6 inches, slicing from her upper thigh toward her hip. It had ripped through her outer armor, a strange material, simultaneously rigid and flexible like second skin. He gently pulled the shredded part aside, revealing a stretch of deep green skin, flawless despite the blood. Even while wounded, her skin had an unnatural sheen that made his fingers hesitate, just for a second. "This'll sting. The more it stings, the more it reminds me I'm alive," she said with a half smile. Kael pressed the sterilizer to the wound. She didn't flinch, only breathed a little deeper. His eyes wandered to her face, sharp jawline, lips pressed into a firm line, and eyes distant, like someone remembering a world already burned to ash. "Someone chasing you?" Silence. "I'm guessing that bike didn't crash because you took a wrong turn." "I was shot down," she murmured after a long pause. Kael stood up, cleaned his hands, wiped the tools dry. "I can fix the bike for you. But if you keep pretending this is just a pit stop, I might let you bleed out right here." She stared at him, and for the first time Kael saw something raw behind the cold armor, desperation barely holding it together. "My name's Nisha." "Kael, I can't tell you everything." Then tell me something, he said, crossing his arms and leaning against the table. I didn't come here to start a war, she said quietly. But I brought war with me. She rose slowly and walked toward the coat rack. Without hesitation, she removed her outer armor, revealing her shoulders and sides, covered in bruises and cuts already beginning to scab over. Kael turned away, trying not to look, but it was impossible not to feel the heat radiating off her body as she moved past him. I need 4 hours of rest somewhere. Without cameras. Upstairs. There's a bed, half a roof, and no one around. I'll pay. Don't need it. I don't want to owe anyone. Call it an exchange then. Exchange for what? She asked, tilting her head. You give me part of the truth. I give you shelter. Nisha raised an eyebrow. Dressed now in one of his old mechanic shirts, she stepped past Kael, leaving behind the warm scent of metal and that ever-lingering tension in her eyes. Creaky wooden stairs, a dim yellow bulb casting long shadows as two silhouettes climbed to the upper floor. Kael unlocked the room, stepped inside first to keep watch. Nisha turned her back to him. If someone comes looking for me, then I'll do what every good mechanic does best. What's that? Keep secrets, and hold a gun. Nisha chuckled quietly, no sound in her breath. Kael leaned back against the door, shotgun resting across his lap. In the moonlight filtering through the old curtain, he could still make out the way her back arched as she vanished into the dark. Midnight. The room is still. The only sound is the soft tread of bare feet on wooden floorboards. Nisha descended from the bed, still wearing his oversized shirt. Moonlight caught her long legs, no longer bruised. The biopatch had done its job. She looked at Kael, still sitting at the door, vigilant. You're not sleeping. I've regretted sleeping too early before. Always alert? Or just stupid? She sat beside him, her arm brushing lightly against his. I used to trust no one. And now, I'm not sure, she replied, eyes locked on his. Kael could feel her breath at his neck. The space between them vanished, not from movement, but from something unseen, something heavier than fear. Do you think I'm dangerous? I think you're wondering whether you even deserve to be trusted. They held each other's gaze. No armor, no pretense, just the question lingering between two exiles. Nisha reached out and placed her hand gently on his chest. I won't pull away. Neither will I. And then she leaned her head on his shoulder, not as an invitation, but as something far rarer. Trust. A fragile seed sprouting in the middle of a war. After a quiet night, the sun had yet to rise, and in the darkness, the warmth of closeness still lingered, unnamed as. The first sound to break the silence was a whisper-soft step descending the creaky stairs. Kael stirred, lifting his head from where his shotgun rested across his lap. Sleep still clung to his eyes, but instinct had shaken him awake, the moment he felt warmth slipping out of reach. Nisha appeared at the edge of the staircase, still wearing his oversized shirt. Her long hair was tousled, and the first slivers of daylight filtering through the blinds painted her skin in a pale silver-blue glow like dew clinging to leaves before sunrise. She didn't speak, she just looked at him, and smiled. You stayed at the door all night? She asked softly. And you slept like I couldn't strangle you in your dreams, he replied. She chuckled under her breath, but her voice dropped deeper, more intimate. Because I knew you wouldn't. Kael stood, stretching his back, then turned to unlock the garage door. The metal slid open, groaning, revealing her grav bike, burnt, dented, and exposed in the early dawn light. Come on, let's see if there's any hope left for this wreck. Seamless, both of them crouched beneath the vehicle. Kael held his tools. Nisha knelt beside him. They were close enough that their breaths mingled in silence. Kael popped open the energy core and saw it immediately. You disconnected the power conduit too quickly. I had no choice, she said. If I didn't, it would have sent a signal. To who? Kael asked, though he already suspected the answer. Nisha looked up, her eyes finally void of pretense. To the ones hunting me, and if you touch this wire right here, she said, leaning over him, arms slipping past his shoulder. That signal will go live. Don't touch it, she whispered. Let me arch my back first. Her body moved across his like a low current of heat, back curving in a slow arc like a bow pulled taut. Kael could feel every point of contact, the soft press of her skin, the warm ripple of tension beneath. Air seemed too thick between them. His throat tightened. "Are you doing that on purpose?" he murmured. "Only when I'm curious," she replied without looking back. Kael slid out from beneath the bike, stood and faced her. They were inches apart, close enough to breathe the same air. "You think I'll take the bait?" "I think," she said slowly, "I haven't yet decided whether you want to fix my bike or fix me." Kael gave a dry laugh. "You really think you're in control of this?" "Not control, just steering." A 3D schematic of the grav bike lit up, glowing bright as a hollow projection. Both leaned in to examine it, their hands brushing as she pointed. Kael tapped a node on the energy grid. "What's this section for?" "Auxiliary power routing, but it only works if the pilot's biocode is active." "You wiped yours before the crash?" She nodded. "I wasn't planning to survive." Kael didn't press further. He just handed her a screwdriver. One by one, the pieces began to align, the bolts, the wiring, the delicate energy flow. But the tension between them only grew hotter. Every time her arm brushed his, every glance, every accidental press of fingers, Kael felt sparks jumping through his skin. By midday, the bike was almost functional again. Nisha turned to him. "If I leave tonight, would you let me go?" Kael met her gaze, unblinking. "If I said yes, would you believe me?" "No." "Then why ask?" "Because," she hesitated, "I wanted to know if you'd lie for me." Suddenly the screen blared with an alert, an incoming signal, red warning lights blinking furiously. She shut the holo map instantly, voice dropping low. "They're searching, closer than before. This isn't random sweeps anymore, it's direct targeting." Kael clenched his fists. "Then we need to move before they arrive." "No," she said. "If you follow me, you'll die." "If I don't," he said firmly, "I'll lose you." This time, she didn't argue. She just reached out and wrapped her fingers around his, tight, silent, and trembling with something deeper than fear. Golden afternoon light leaning across old rooftops, two silhouettes moving quickly through narrow alleyways, their footsteps hurried, yet uncannily in sync. Kael and Nisha slipped through 3 streets, a dead-end passage, and a shuttered sign repair shop, before reaching the ragged outskirts on the edge of the city. They said nothing the entire way. But the way they moved, no directions needed, no rhythm broken, spoke louder than any words. The motel they found looked like even time had abandoned it. A broken neon sign, windows covered in old newspapers, and a front desk manned by someone half asleep, half aware. Kael tossed a wad of cash onto the counter. "1 room." "Only got 1 left," the clerk mumbled without even lifting his head. The door clicked shut behind them. A single bed, a flickering lamp, and a sheer curtain as thin as a lie. Nisha walked in first, her eyes scanning every corner. Kael lingered by the door, as if needing a moment to accept that he'd stepped into something with no reverse gear. "Bed's too small," she said, shrugging off her jacket and tossing it onto a chair. "You sleep lengthwise. I'll sleep in some other direction." "You're not that fragile," she smiled, sitting on the bed. "I once slept in a freight pod barely half this size." Kael watched her lie down on her side, her back arching just enough to draw the eye. He sighed, then sat at the edge of the bed. "I don't know why I'm here." "Because you can't leave," she said, eyes closed, voice soft. A long moment passed. The space between them thickened. No engines, no alarms. Just her steady breath and the quiet ache pulsing inside his chest. Night fell. Under a dim yellow lamp, Nisha's hand drifted onto Kael's chest. Not to seduce, but to confirm he was truly there. He didn't move. But every slow inhale she took kept him more awake than any stimulant could. Around 2 a.m. a faint buzzing stirred the air. Kael jolted upright. "Surveillance drone." "I hear it," Nisha said, instantly alert, her hair tousled, Kael's shirt slipping off one shoulder. She dropped to the floor, pulling a slim scanner from her coat. The screen flashed red. "There's a passive tracking tag. They attached it to you. When?" "Back at the shop. Probably when they brushed past your shoulder." "Perfect." Kael growled, fists tightening. Nisha peeled off a thin tracking disc, barely thicker than paper, placed it on the dresser and stomped on it. A sharp crack echoed, like snapping the last thread of borrowed luck. "They know your direction, not your exact location, but if they're nearby—" She didn't get to finish. A knock came at the door. The door trembled under 3 deliberate knocks. A voice followed, polite but cold. "We're with the Night Patrol security team. Please open the door for a quick check." Kael and Nisha exchanged a glance. She whispered, "If they get inside, I'm exposed." Kael nodded. "Then let me stall them." He cracked the door open a couple inches. A man in a security uniform stood outside, eyes sharp. But Kael could tell this wasn't real law enforcement. "We've identified a foreign presence nearby, greenish skin, blue eyes." "I've seen no one," Kael said flatly. "Just a girl sleeping since 10, no pizza, no visitors." "May I speak with her?" "Up to you." "But she sleeps like the dead." Behind him, Nisha appeared, hair unkempt, eyes half-closed, bare feet, and Kael's shirt draped loosely enough to reveal her collarbone. She wrapped her arms around Kael's waist, leaned her head into his shoulder, and spoke in a sleepy murmur. "What's going on?" The man blinked, slightly thrown off. His eyes drifted down, clearly noting all the subtle signs of a woman too real to be fiction. "No worries, ma'am. Just a routine safety check." "You think my eyes are blue?" She smirked, letting out a drowsy yawn. Kael shut the door before the guy could rethink anything. The lock clicked. A long exhale broke the silence. Both stood still in the dark. "You just saved both of us," Kael said. "No," Nisha replied softly. "You risked everything to shield me." He turned, watching her sit on the edge of the bed, hugging a pillow, eyes gentler now. "You could have given me up, told them I was armed, that you were just a bystander." "But I heard you breathing under the floorboards," he said quietly. "I'm not the kind of man who walks away from a breath like that." She rose, walked to him slowly. The pain in her eyes was gone, replaced by something softer, something real. "You stood between me and them. I saw a busted bike and a bad leg. That's not all." "What else?" "Me," she said, pressing her palm to his cheek. In that moment, they didn't need a reason anymore. Deep into the night, the room silent but for breathing, and beneath the old wooden floor, a secret trembled like an underground current of electricity. After the footsteps faded away, Kael gently lifted the floorboard panel. A narrow crawl space where he once hid spare engine parts, now repurposed as the only safe spot for Nisha if her pursuers returned. She slid into the darkness, eyes locked on his until the last moment. "If they come back, don't open your mouth," she whispered. "Just open my heart," he said with a tired smirk. She grinned faintly before disappearing beneath the boards. Kael waited. 1 minute. Then 2. Another knock. But this time it was different. 3 silhouettes stood at the door. When Kael opened it a crack, he saw them. Dark green skin, armor like muscles, eyes like sharpened blades. They weren't human, at least not anymore. "We're tracking a high-threat target. Female. Bright hair, luminous skin, approx 1.75 meters tall." "It's just me in here," Kael replied evenly. "No one matches that description unless you're writing sci-fi." "You live alone?" "I live with wrecked engines and an unpaid dream. We need access to the repair bay." They brushed past him like fog, silent and heavy. One began scanning. Another walked straight to the spot where Nisha had received medical treatment. Kael shadowed them, silent, his hand hovering near the grip of the pistol holstered at his side. Red scanning light swept the area, tension thick. But no alarms. No detections. They left quietly. But the air they left behind still smelled faintly of death. Once silence returned, Kael lifted the panel. Nisha slipped out like smoke. "You lied to them without blinking," she said, brushing dust from her arm. "I learned from the best." "But you're not like me," she replied, stepping closer. "Not like you, how?" "You weren't born to kill," she said, eyes studying him. "But you're willing to die for what's right." Kael sank onto the chair, weary. Nisha climbed onto the workbench. Churia crossed her legs and fixed her gaze on him. "What if I told you everything?" she asked. "I'd still choose to stay," he replied without hesitation. She stood and walked over slowly, placing her hand on his shoulder. "I used to believe I was a tool. And now? Now I wonder if even a tool can feel warmth." Kael looked up. Her fingers drifted from his shoulder to his chest, and suddenly her lips were inches from his. "If you kiss me now," she whispered, "you won't be thinking straight anymore." "I haven't thought straight since I pulled you out of that alley. Not a sweet kiss, but an explosion. A collision of instinct, pain, and trust being built breath by breath." Nisha pressed Kael against the cold steel wall. His shirt hit the floor. She clung to him like someone experiencing life for the first and only time. He lifted her onto the workbench, her legs wrapped around his waist, her skin warm as fire, glowing faintly under a flickering bulb. "You sure you know what you're doing?" she murmured. "No." Kael's voice was hoarse. "But I know what I want." As her lips slid down his neck, all fear, all doubts burned away in a hunger too deep to name. The aftermath, sweaty bodies tangled in silence, breath steadying. In their eyes wasn't lust, but something else. Complete, wordless surrender. "Do you regret it?" she asked softly, head resting on his chest. "No," Kael replied. "Because if I did, I wouldn't have locked the door behind you." She smiled faintly, the first time in days. A sharp hiss split the sky, an aircraft descending nearby. Kael jumped up, pulling on his shirt and grabbing his weapon. They've arrived. Nisha was already on her feet, weapon in hand, eyes colder now, calculated and calm. "They're not here to search," she said. "They're here to eliminate. You want to fight? I want the truth to survive." She opened a hidden compartment in her bike, revealing a small glowing device, red like burning coal. "This is why they're hunting me." Kael stared, not at the device but at her. She was no longer the wounded girl from the alley. She was a woman holding something powerful enough to shift the axis of power in the galaxy. "You weren't just running? I'm carrying the seed of rebellion," she said. "And I chose you to be the first to know." After breathless passion comes heavy silence, and in that silence sometimes truth speaks louder than any gunfire. Kael stared at the device in Nisha's hand, small as a stone yet glowing from within, the red light like a burn that refused to cool. She set it on the table and nudged it toward him. "You know what this is? I'm guessing the thing that sent an entire kill team foaming at the mouth for you." "Not just for me," she said, pausing. "For Earth." His brow furrowed. "Explain." Nisha drew a slow breath. "I was born on Velkara Prime, royal lineage. I was chosen to marry the Supreme Commander, a political union to merge the two largest fleets in the galaxy. And you refused?" "I didn't just refuse." Her voice darkened. "I stole everything. Strategic maps, invasion plans, encrypted orders, internal codes. Then I ran." "What were they planning for Earth?" "To consume it, literally." Kael froze. "You supported that plan once?" "I used to say Earth was weak, easy to manipulate. I helped design the blockade strategy, and then you changed. When I realized a planet isn't weak because it lacks weapons, but because it forgets how to love, forgive, and protect the small things." The two darted through the city under cover of night, heading for a place Kael once believed no longer existed. An underground data vault beneath an abandoned market. The place used to be a pre-war information hub. Kael only knew because his uncle once worked there. No one believed it still functioned, but with Nisha's device, everything came back to life. They plugged the unit into the main terminal. The screen lit up. A flood of data rushed in, dense, staggering. The display filled with planetary maps, invasion routes, warfare simulations, and a video clip that left Kael speechless. On screen, Nisha knelt before a towering figure, his eyes like twin blades, his body draped in insignias of war. "That him?" Kael asked. "General Korath, the man I once called my future husband. You tried to destroy him from the inside. I almost succeeded, until he got suspicious and sent assassins after me." Kael watched her, not the screen, but her. And what chilled him wasn't just the content of the data, but the look in her eyes as she watched her own past. It was the look of someone who had betrayed a cause, and now bore a guilt that couldn't be erased. "Do you regret it?" he asked quietly. "No," she replied. "But I'm afraid you won't look at me the same way again." Kael stepped forward, placed his hand gently on her face, and pulled her close. "I'm not here because of your past," he said. "I'm here for the woman standing in front of me, trembling, not from fear, but from the silence between us." A thud on the ceiling hatch, metal rattling, heavy footsteps above. "They found us," Nisha said, drawing her weapon. "We can't let the device fall into their hands. This isn't just escape anymore. We fight back." Kael nodded. "Then let's make them bleed." A moment later, the ceiling burst open, metal clashing. 4 dark figures dropped down. Kael ducked and fired. Nisha moved like a shadow, plasma blades slicing one of them clean through the neck. The chaos lasted barely 2 minutes. When it ended, the bunker was soaked in blood, smoke coiling upward, and the only sounds were the ragged breaths of survivors. Kael sat against the wall, chest heaving. Nisha dropped beside him, gripping his hand like it was the last anchor holding her to a world still worth saving. "I should have died in deep space," she whispered, "but you fell where I could find you." The two of them now stood before the shattered entrance of the vault, data secured but pursuers still alive, and coming back. They won't stop. Then neither will we. Nighttime over the city, where crumbling buildings stand like the hollow skeletons of a civilization that once believed in peace. Now, a silent battlefield for those no longer meant to exist. They took shelter in an abandoned power storage facility on the edge of the city. Once a station meant to feed electricity to an entire commercial zone that had collapsed a decade ago. Beneath the rusted steel plates, two small jetcrafts lay under tarps, leftovers from those who once held power but had long since vanished. Nisha inspected every weapon still functional, her eyes sharp as blades. Her hands didn't shake, even as the artery in her neck pulsed with tension. Kael adjusted his weapon harness, his gaze fixed on her. "You once said you were a political tool, a weapon designed to be used." "I did. But now you're rewriting that definition. It's not easy," she said, turning to look at him. "Especially when I don't want to lose you." Kael stepped closer, voice low and unwavering. "I'm not going anywhere. But if you die for me," she whispered, "then I can't call this love. Then let me tell you what this is." He placed his hand on her waist and pulled her in. Amid dust and silence, between the groan of rusted vents and the flickering of broken lights, he kissed her. Not from desire, but from choice, because even if the world shattered around them, Kael had already made his decision. Nisha. The one who once planned Earth's destruction, and who now would give everything to protect it. "If I die," he murmured against her lips, "let it be by choice, not your fault." Her throat clenched, but she didn't cry. She just held him tighter. Alarm light blinking red on the scanner. The enemy had found them. This time, it wasn't a capture squad, it was a kill team. "They've launched a purge squad." "Now I get it," Kael said. "Why you couldn't stay." "They don't want to imprison me anymore," she said. "They want to erase me from history." Kael popped open a weapons crate and pulled out a custom shotgun, with a blade fused to the stock. "Then let's make sure your name gets carved into their damn files in blood." Nisha chuckled softly, but in her eyes was something wild and bright. "Just don't die before me." "That's not the plan," Kael grinned. "We survive, together." 3 Hunter-class operatives landed on the roof, bioweapons, armor reinforced against energy rounds. These weren't soldiers. They were machines of death. Glass shattered. The side door exploded inward. Kael and Nisha pressed their backs together. No room for fear. Only movement. Only fire. Only blood and instinct from two souls who knew this could be the last stand. A strike landed square on Kael's shoulder, sending him crashing back, blood in his mouth. Nisha didn't think. She lunged, her plasma blade slicing through the attacker's neck, sparks spraying, steel splitting, her breath ragged as she dropped beside him. "You okay?" "Don't cry." "I don't know how," she hissed, her hand trembling as she pressed a stim injector against his throat. Light bloomed across the warehouse as Kael surged back to his feet. Together they charged the final enemy, ending it with a blade driven deep into its reactor core. Silence. No alarms. No police. No backup. Just two people standing in the wreckage, breathing like they'd survived the end of the world. "Is it over?" Kael asked. "Not yet." Nisha pulled out the device. "I haven't shared this data with the rest of humanity." "Then we go." "There's no going back, Kael." "I'm not going back," he said, tightening his grip around her hand. "I just need to know, do you still want to keep walking beside me?" "I don't know if I deserve to be loved." "I don't care," he said simply. "I already love you." They walked out of the warehouse, hand in hand, never once looking back, because what lay ahead, no matter how dark, was the only thing left worth living for. Two silhouettes rushing across the city's edge, beneath a blood-red sunset, where the horizon buckled under the weight of war approaching fast-braced. A crumbling communications tower stood hidden among the ruins of a forgotten district, once the central relay hub of the planet before the war. Now, it was their last hope of broadcasting the stolen data across the galaxy. "If we send this out," Nisha said, fingers trembling slightly as she activated the device, "there'll be no turning back for me. If you don't, Kael replied, placing a hand on her shoulder. Earth won't have a future either. She nodded. No tears, no fear, only choice. They infiltrated the broadcast tower, slipping past outdated security systems, descending through rust-eaten corridors and abandoned power conduits. Kael plugged the device into the main control port. The data surged out like a river, bursting its dam. Plans for planetary assaults, lists of targets, evidence of purges. Velkara Prime's darkest secrets were being injected into every working system still listening. The monitor flashed. Warnings blared. Signal overload. All satellite relays engaging simultaneously. You sure about this? Nisha asked. No, Kael said with a crooked smile, but I trust you. She placed her hand on the control board. Activate. Transmission towers across the planet lit up. Screens in control centers, military outposts, and starships everywhere displaying the message. Classified data. Source, Nisha Viral. Her name appeared. Clear. Unmistakable. She was no longer a fugitive. Now she was the most public traitor of Velkara, and the silent hero of Earth. Kael looked at her. You just put yourself at the top of every hit list in the system. And I just dragged you onto it with me. I walked into it willingly, he said, grinning. An explosion thundered through the tower's base. Footsteps charged up the stairwells. They were here. They can't stop the transmission now, Nisha said, but they can kill us. Twist it all into a lie. Then let's make sure they don't take us down easily. They engaged defense mode. The doors locked. Kael rigged micro-explosives along the corridors. Nisha drew her energy pistol, her eyes no longer that of a fleeing princess, but a warrior with nothing left to lose. Velkara shock troops stormed the tower floor by floor, but every one of them was driven back. Kael and Nisha fought back to back, drenched in blood, sweat, and the howls of a final stand. Eventually, only smoke remained. The bodies of soldiers lay in silence. She stood. Blood streaked across her throat and collar. He stood beside her, breathing hard, shoulder grazed. Is it done? He asked. Not quite. She touched her ear. There's one last thing I have to say. She activated the emergency broadcast mic, tying it to every open frequency still pulsing. Her voice echoed, deep and unwavering across cities, screens, and stars. I am Nisha Viral, heiress of Velkara Prime, one who once helped design the blueprint to destroy your planet, and the one who today destroyed that very blueprint. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I offer no defense. I only did what I could. Tell the truth. Use it as you will, believe it or don't. But if you survive this night, then please live for things worth protecting, not just things worth conquering. The signal ended. Kael took her hand, pulled her close amid gun smoke and blood. With the world trying to erase them, he kissed her. This time, nothing held them back. You know something? He murmured. What? I've never seen anyone look more beautiful than you do right now, with the world burning behind you. She laughed, soft, cracked, but real. Then promise me, if I die, you'll live, carry my name. No, he whispered, I'll live with you. Or not at all. Early morning, the old comms tower still smoldering like a torch marking the end of an era. The data had been sent, the full war strategy of Velkara Prime laid bare. Every major power across the galaxy now knew the truth, the schemes and ambitions of a regime once believed to be untouchable. And Nisha no longer a fugitive. She had become a symbol. A reckoning. Kael and Nisha slipped out of the tower through an old sewer line, emerging into what was once a forgotten supply station deep underground. There Kael found an old cargo vessel. It still ran, barely, but it couldn't take them off-world. Not that they needed to flee anymore. They won't come for us again, Nisha said, gazing at the cavern ceiling. If they kill me now, it'll only make the truth louder. So, it's over? Kael asked, sitting beside her. Not yet, she whispered, but I don't feel hunted anymore. I feel alive. 1 week later, in a quiet suburb, a small machine shop reopened for business. The rolling door had been repainted. A new sign hung above the entrance. Valor and Nisha, mechanical repair and data recovery. The locals whispered, she used to be a wanted alien. And then they whispered again, she also saved this planet. And so they learned to stop asking questions. Kael stood out front, wiping grease from his hands, looking up into the soft morning sun. Nisha stepped out after him, hair tied up, oil smudged on her fingers. You still can't tighten that bolt, he said. I will if you stop teaching like a robot. You've said that all week. That's because I like watching you teach, he grinned. She raised an eyebrow and walked up close. And you still haven't kissed me this morning. Let me fix that. A quiet kiss under golden light, no more battles, no more alarms. Just two people who chose each other in the rubble of what was left. You still think I'm dangerous? She asked, resting against his chest. You're the kind of danger worth living with. And you? I'm the place where you never have to run again. That night, they lay on the loft bed above the workshop. Nisha wore one of Kael's oversized shirts, moonlight falling across her skin like it did the first night they met. Kael? She whispered. Yeah? Do you think we've changed? No, he said. But you made me remember the better version of myself. She smiled. You're not here to fix me, mechanic. I know, you're not broken. But her fingers traced down his back. If I arch my back just a little bit, Kael groaned softly. Again? Last time, I promise. Now, don't move. Let me arch my back first. And she pulled him into breath and warmth and laughter, not because they were running anymore, but because they were finally free to live. They didn't become heroes in history books, but they lived. And in a world full of conquerors, sometimes two souls who just want to love and fix broken things are exactly the kind worth keeping.